U.S. soldiers threatened him with death, blindfolded him, duct taped him naked to a board, scrawled expletives on him, and posed with him for pictures before holding him in an unlit metal shipping container for 2 days. Yet curiously, the OIG reports in its executive summary, we found no instances in which an FBI agent participated in clear detainee abuse of the kind that some military interrogators used at Abu Ghraib prison. Unbeknownst to me until a few weeks ago, the White House had decided not to turn over any documents to Lindh's defense counsel. The Defense Department, apoplectic that its new policy on the torture of captives in the war on terrorism was going to be exposed, leaned on the Justice Department to offer Lindh a deal. On the eve of the suppression hearing that was going to expose his mistreatment, Lindh pleaded guilty to 2 relatively minor charges that landed him in jail for 20 years. As part of the plea bargain, he had to sign a statement swearing that he had not been intentionally mistreated by his U.S. captors and waiving any future claim of torture. In 2002, my lawyer made it abundantly clear to the Office of Inspector General that I took several steps to thwart efforts to conceal material regarding Lindh's interrogation from the court. In January 2003, Inspector General Glenn Fine, who will be testifying about this very issue before the Senate Judiciary Committee on Wednesday, if any of you want to see something, he basically told my lawyer he looked into my whistleblower allegations and was not going to pursue them. My reaction is that the Inspector General didn't look too deeply because he didn't even bother to talk to me, the complainant. To add insult to injury, OIG turned my case over for criminal prosecution, which eventually closed without charges ever being brought. I don't know what they would have charged me with. Stealing paper clips from the government, leaking is not a crime, and they can't hide behind the attorney-client privilege to commit illegal acts. But the Justice Department was not through. There's been a long litany, 7 years worth of retaliation, including little things like the government assisting my private law firm in contesting my award of unemployment compensation benefits. Your government at work. Needless to say, the current OIG report does not mention that FBI agent Christopher Ryman, who admits that when informing Lindh of his right to counsel ad-libbed, of course there are no lawyers here in Afghanistan. When OIG catalogs a gruesome list of techniques used on detainees in Afghanistan, including abusive handling, harsh restraints, deprivation of clothing, blindfolding, humiliation, and isolation, it does not reference Lindh. In fact, the report makes no mention of John Walker Lindh whatsoever. While I applaud the handful of people identified in the report who repeatedly challenged harsh interrogation techniques, I question the motive of the OIG report in propping them up as revisionist evidence that the Justice Department's and FBI's role in torture was somehow not so bad. It must be remembered that the same Justice Department's Office of Legal Counsel, which writes legal opinions considered binding on federal agencies and departments, authored the infamous torture memo that gave justices imprimatur to such conduct in the first place. No Office of Inspector General report has been issued on that. My story is a microcosm of what happens when you trade freedom for fear, when you confuse dissent with disloyalty and replace democracy with despotism. John Walker Lindh started out as a traitor incarnate, treasonous, the worst of the bad. But he turned out to be a misguided kid from California. I started out as an ethics advisor at the Department of Justice, but was somehow transmogrified into a traitor, a turncoat, a terrorist sympathizer, according to unnamed officials quoted in the New York Times. This reversal is emblematic of how far the war on terrorism has inverted the constitutional structure in which our inner lives are private and the work of the government is public. Instead, it has created a country in which our personal lives are transparent and the workings of the government are secret. This obsessive secrecy hinders security. Our best protection against terrorism is an informed public and the safety valve of free expression, but we have done everything to prevent that. The erosion of civil rights and liberties is a toxic trend, and I hope my story will help deprive it of oxygen. In responding to terrorism, we must not trample on the very freedoms for which we are fighting, and public servants should not have to choose between their conscience and their career. Thank you. I'd be glad to take questions because I know the story has many different tentacles and can go many different ways, and different audiences want to hear different aspects. So line them up.
Don't worry, it's friendly fire. They're not critical questions. I'm just curious about two legal things. And first of all, thank you for what you've done. That's wonderful.
You're very welcome.
The first one, when they made him sign that statement, and they know it's false, isn't that suborning perjury?
I think, yes, I think it is. I think his attorneys who have petitioned for commutation of his sentence are considering that, and considering introducing new evidence, which has come out only in the last couple of weeks. The nature of information that has come out has been very drip, drip, drip. Every couple months we learn something new about what happened. And for the reporters, who I'm grateful to, Jane Mayer and Eric Lischblau, a number of the bloggers, right and left, who've been covering this case, I think definitely this is new information. And I think the plea bargain itself was problematic in many ways, heavy-handed.
Okay. Thank you. And another quick follow-up.
Sure.
Leaking by a government official is not illegal, for sure?
Yes, for sure. You're authorized to leak under the Whistleblower Protection Act of 1989. You cannot be retaliated against for giving information that evidences fraud, waste, and abuse. Part of the problem, however, with the Whistleblower Protection Act is that it has no teeth. So when they retaliate against you in spades, it doesn't create a private cause of action for you to go and sue the government. So it sounds really good on paper, but it's kind of a paper tiger. And in terms of actually protecting people, we're trying to strengthen it right now. There are proposals on both sides of the aisle in Congress to try to strengthen whistleblower protections because we need them more than ever right now.